What's going on, everybody? Chase.
Del.
How do you pronounce your last name?
Schlangen.
You know, I was gonna say that. I was gonna butcher it.
It's German for snakes.
Really?
Yeah.
So Del of the Snakes over here, and Chase of the Chewning. So I met Del through a mutual friend of ours, Brian DaCosta, who is no longer with us. He's not dead. He just moved. He got wrapped up and caught those feelings and is moving out west to California with Amanda Bucci. So I met him a couple weeks ago, actually, at my wife's birthday party. He came over, and come to find out, Del was in the Army as well. He was a similar MOS, but it was like the same but different, if that makes any sense. So
same community.
Exactly, yeah. We were both MI, both military intelligence, both active duty Army. And so when he told me his story, I was like, this is a really cool video idea. And so I think that it'll really help a lot of you guys out who are looking into going into the Army, going into the military, really the MI field, because I was an intelligence analyst with a language. He was an intelligence analyst, not
no language.
Just
barely English.
Just English. Yeah. And so, but he also has another experience that I don't, and that was not one but two deployments. So yeah, he was in theater twice, and you all know my story in some of my previous videos. I volunteered twice, got injured, and then got kicked out. So you know, not for nothing, not for not trying. But I thought first I would briefly describe what I did, what my role was in the Army. Again, I've touched on this a few videos ago, and then kind of teed up for Del to talk about what his experience was, his 9 to 5 stateside, and then what his experience was overseas. So I signed up as a 98 X-ray. It was a cryptologic linguist, which about 2-3 years into my contract turned into a 35 Papa, and that was basically an intelligence analyst with a language. I went to the Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. They chose Russian for me. I didn't have any say-so in the language. About a year later, I'm sprachen Sie Ruski, which is not German, not Russian, a little bit of a hodgepodge. So I was a Russian linguist, and then did that for about 2 years, actually attached to an NSA site in San Antonio, Texas. And before that time and during that time, I ran some other missions, assisted in some intelligence gathering with a language, without a language, basically just using my skill set to collect information, collect intelligence, properly sort it out, and disseminate it to the proper client, if you will. And so I tried twice for 2 assignments to put me overseas. That was not going to be a Russian language specific mission, but it was going to be utilizing my skill sets as an intelligence analyst. And so really, I think that's where Del steps in. So he did sort of kind of the same thing stateside, but then he actually got to use his strategic side in a tactical environment. So take it away, man.
Yeah, so I came in the Army in 2007. I enlisted as what was a 96 Bravo, which was an intelligence analyst, just general intelligence analyst at the time. By the time I graduated AIT, they had switched it to 35 Fox.
Did you go to Huachuca?
I did.
Okay.
So I went to Fort Huachuca for AIT.
A lot of people ask me that. Did you go to Huachuca? So different MOSs in the MI field, you'll go to Huachuca. It's basically for every other MOS that doesn't require a language. You'll go to Fort Huachuca, Arizona.
It's very hot, very mountainous area.
Yeah, so I hear. Yeah.
So I did that. Basically, the job of an intelligence analyst in stateside versus deployment can be different. It also cannot be. It depends on kind of where you end up in the military, where you end up in the Army. It's a very big tent, so sometimes you will do the same job, or you'll do a similar mission stateside versus overseas. I did not have that experience. As an intelligence analyst, as a soldier, stateside, you'll do more of an administrative job. At least I did when I was stationed in Alaska. So it's a lot of security clearance type things, a lot of regular Army training. Yeah. You will go to some classes, some courses that will help you in your job overseas, but it was mostly an administrative kind of in and out processing type of job.
Yeah, we were talking about before. So we had the same job, with a language, without a language, but our roles were kind of like totally switched, because my quote 9 to 5 when I was stateside, when I was active duty, was my actual job. I used my language, I used my intelligence skills. That was my job every day, day in, day out. And then you basically were doing everything else that isn't part of being in the military, part of being a soldier and then you did your job once you were deployed. So, what was it like going from having a job but not doing that job to actually doing your job in a totally different environment?
So it was so relieving. So anybody who joins the military will do their regular job and do soldier stuff as well.
You're always a soldier no matter what.
So, but once you deploy, you tend to do the specific job that you were trained for. And the job of an intelligence analyst overseas is essentially there's intelligence collectors and then there's intelligence analysts. And there's different there's imagery intelligence, there's geospatial, there's human intelligence, there's different types.
Signals intelligence.
And your job as an intelligence analyst overseas is to access and analyze all those different intelligence ints, if you will, and then make sense of it for the commanders who are making decisions on the ground. So basically, you're assigned an area or a problem set, and your job is to be an expert on that problem set. And so that's what I did for 2 years overseas, basically in a nutshell.
So a lot of questions that I get about, well, what do you do if you get deployed? Are you always the typical person that we see in the movies? When you think Army, you think soldier knocking down doors, and I think you're a great testament to the fact that, again, I don't know what exactly you did. Odds are he probably can't talk about a lot of things that he did, but is the perception right of if you get deployed, you're just always on the front lines, banging down doors? It sounds like you had a very specific mission to that environment.
As an intelligence analyst, that will not be your experience necessarily.
Most likely.
It is a 7-day-a-week job. It's a 12-hour day. You're doing shift work essentially, and your job is to be accountable for an area and to support the warfighter basically by interpreting what's going on. Because they're not necessarily going to have that 1,000-foot view of the district or the town or the village or what the enemy's doing. They're there doing their job. They're going on patrol. They're talking to the locals. So they'll have a different perspective than you may necessarily have, and it's your job to kind of make sense of that, all that's going on, and present it in a coherent way.
Because they're not always going to have the ability to have eyes in the sky, ears in the streets, and that's where the MI soldier really steps in. And that's one of the things, the biggest takeaways I can talk about the military in general, is that no matter what, at the end of the day, you're always a soldier. That's why we always, week in, week out, month in, month out, you have your warrior tasks and drills. You have the skill sets that every person, no matter what your job is, you have to be flawless in. So that when you do get put in this environment of being in theater, getting deployed, doing different missions, you can still do your job, but you can also still grab a weapon, grab a pack, grab someone who's maybe fallen, and soldier on. So
and I don't want people to think that you won't necessarily go on patrol or step outside the wire just because you're an intelligence analyst. That's not true. You will get that experience, and you will go through things like that as well. So that's why that soldier training is so important. But you also have an additional mission to sit on that computer and to interpret and analyze,
ears on, as we call it,
and make sense of the battlefield.
So he did that over there, I did that over here. So kind of just a little insight as to what a tactical analyst looks like and what a strategic analyst looks like. Obviously you can tell that a tactical analyst is much bigger than a strategic analyst.
More time to lift weights.
So let's dive into the Q&A portion. Thank you guys for putting up some questions. The military Q&As are probably one of the ones that, like I said, I get the most requests for and most insight. So I, again, was active duty 6 years. I got out as an E6. I was technically medically retired. Dell is now out as well. You don't have any IRR time?
No, I did 15 months in drilling reserve in exchange for not having IRR time.
And now he's doing the same thing that he was active duty. You're in the intel field just now as a civilian. Which is, again, a big takeaway. A lot of people do that. It's a very, very smart way to get your feet wet into the intelligence community, really into government work as a whole.
And it's the clearance. The clearance is a major hurdle for a lot of people who have never been military or done intelligence in the military. Because they'll give an 18-year-old a clearance where it's very hard otherwise to get it at that age.
And it's not just any clearance. It's the highest up you can get, basically. And of course, depending upon your mission and what you do. But it's a very, very valuable tool, a very, very valuable experience that you can then parlay into the government sector, private contracting, things like that. So, first question up. I get this all the time. How was boot camp for both of you? Where'd you go to basic?
Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Relaxin' Jackson.
Relaxin' Jackson.
You sandbagging son of a bitch. I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Fort Lost in the Woods. It was miserable. I don't know about you, but I went. It was right in like the end of summer and into winter.
Yeah,
so I got
high school. Yeah.
I was miserable, dude. I had like the humid miserableness of Missouri, and then it was raining and cold. So if I ever go back to Missouri, it's too soon. I love South Carolina.
Yeah, for me, it was the hardest part was just being an 18-year-old that was scared of the world.
I was 17.
Yeah,
I was 17.
so that was really it. I mean, physically, it wasn't terribly challenging, and I think that.
It's physically challenging. Don't let him steer you out, okay?
I think that if you want it enough and you properly prep for it and train for it before going, which I would hope you would do.
I certainly did.
You will make it if you want to make it.
What did you do for prep work before going into basic?
Well, I wrestled in high school,
okay.
So I just did a lot of that type of drilling, that type of conditioning work. That's kind of all I knew at the time. So it was a lot of running.
All I did was run. Yeah.
It was a lot of running.
Yeah, which sucked. I hate running, and I don't run anymore. Next up, what's the best piece of advice for a new second lieutenant?
Okay, new LT.
Butter bar.
Know your job as best you can. That's really it. I mean, anybody who comes into the military is going to, there's going to be a learning curve. No one expects the second lieutenant to know everything, to be this expert at their job immediately.
Yeah.
Just take criticism well, and don't get too terrible. Don't be intimidated. Assume your role. You're a leader. People are going to look to you to be a leader. Another thing I would say would be to know your soldier's job as well.
Yes.
Because they're going to expect you to, and you're going to be in charge of soldiers that have anywhere from 1 to 7, 8 years of experience. So they're gonna look to you to know what they do and know the challenges they face, so you can properly address them. Yeah,
absolutely. That's very well said. I don't think I need to add to that at all. No. Advice for people with stutters, stammers. Interesting question. I don't know. I guess life in general, but going into military. So let's say if you have a stuttering problem, and you go to boot camp, the drill sergeants, they're gonna own that. They're gonna run with it. But as with anything, I'm sure you can say in basic, it's not personal. It's not serious. They do that to kind of weed out the people who have that mental fortitude, or even have the ability to grow and enhance that mental fortitude. I'm sure you could say the same. Definitely there's a huge physical component to basic training, but for me it was all the mental game. So I mean, they would make fun of my name. I didn't really have a stuttering problem or anything, but anything that they can latch onto, they will, because it's a growing process. They need to see who is trainable, who is moldable, who at the end of the day is going to be, if you're stuck on a foxhole with them, is going to have your back, or at least have the ability to know what to do. So if you have a stuttering problem, own up to it. I guess I would say make your weakness your strength, and just don't let anybody else use it against you.
Yeah, you will have to embrace that. Especially as an analyst, there's a briefing component to your job.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
good point.
You're gonna have to work on it. You're gonna have a steeper learning curve than most.
Hire a speech coach. Hire I don't know. Yeah, a speech coach, I guess. Yeah. And as with anything and everything in the military, you have to embrace the suck. Just really learn how to just know that this sucks right now. There's nothing you can do about it, to an extent, and then just drive on. Yeah. Other than friends and loved ones, what was the hardest thing to live without when deployed? That's all you.
Oh, okay. Honestly, friends and loved ones is what you go home for. So, at least most people, and me anyways, it's good and bad. Deployments are interesting in the fact that it's a simpler life.
Sure.
So you don't have to worry about paying bills. You can turn everything off if you want to.
Yeah.
Your food's provided. Your schedule. You have a schedule for the most part.
Day in, day out. Every day.
Yeah. So there's an attractive element to that for some people. I would say the hardest thing, other than friends and loved ones, is good food. And being able to just go out and do stuff and drive your car once in a while deployments are a lot like a minimum security prison. I don't want to say.
I was thinking the same thing, but yeah.
But like you can call people, you can get on the internet, everything else like that when you can. But yeah, I would say just the being able to be lazy on a Sunday, or
Yeah, I mean, and they've come a long way. I was never deployed in theater, and so I know people. I had commanders and NCOs above me who were part of the first wave of OIF, OEF, and they were literally on a cot in a tent in the middle of the damn desert. And then I know people who go and deploy, and they have their barracks right next to a pop-up Pizza Hut. And so it's come a long way. We've learned how to best provide those life things, those kind of just things that we take for granted over here that really help make that process more bearable, would you say?
Yeah, and I mean, everyone's different. Like sleeping on a cot never bothered me, So
I've dug a hole, I've slept in it, yeah.
So some people might miss their bed, I don't know.
I love my Tempur-Pedic bed. I'm going to ship that over if I ever get deployed.
So there's, it depends on the person, for sure.
The siren, oh my God. Are you stuck at the light? Go on!
Driving in a circle.
Yeah, seriously. Hey, you guys aren't filming, are you? Yeah. Honestly, when I was looking at the military, I wanted to go in because I wanted to go to college for graphic design. And they're like, oh yeah, you can do that in the military. Well, it's one of the hardest jobs to get. They had I think 5 slots that open up every year. And we have an opening in 3 years. I'm like, okay. So he just showed me the options. And honestly, the Army sold me the most. Yeah.
Similar thing. I mean, I initially wanted to join the Navy. Is the Army anyone's first choice?
Yeah.
And I was still in high school, and I tried. I was 17 when I
Same. Yeah. I
join.
enlisted halfway through high school.
And and I went to. They used to set up in the cafeteria all the different recruiters.
Yeah.
And I went to go look for the Navy recruiter one day, and the Army guy was the only one there.
I guess. And what does that tell you? Nobody wants. They have to go out seeking.
And he worked harder. He took me out to eat.
Yeah.
He did he drove me around. It's like, if you ever need a ride anywhere, let me know. And
so I guess the moral of the story is, if you go to the recruiters hungry, you're going to wind up joining the Army.
And another thing was that they let you pick your job.
Yeah.
At least at that time they did. In the Navy, I don't believe that was an option. I think you went needs of the Navy.
In the Air Force too, they have a select MOS that you can choose from, and they're like, okay, we have this open, that's it. They didn't budge. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would still be in. Excuse me. If it wasn't for my injuries, my long-term goal was to do the 20 years. I was like, yeah, shit, I'll join in 17, retire at 37, go on to the next stage of life and next career. But I wound up getting injured. I got medically retired after 6 years. I was just turning 24 years old. I wanted to go green to gold, go to OCS, because I wanted to go into more leadership roles. I was actually considering transferring over to the Air Force, which you can do. Any branch of the Army, any branch of the military, you can transfer to other branches if you want. Certain criteria have to be met, except for the Marines. The Marines are the only branch of the military that you can't just hop ship to. You have to actually go into their basic training, which I guess I respect. But I was going to switch over to the Air Force because they had a better pay structure, their bases were better, their food was way better, their defects are way better. So,
It's all true.
Is this a joke? I don't know. What are the procedures of when you're going to a danger zone?
Does it mean deployment?
I'm gonna enter the danger zone theme song right here. I guess, yeah. What's it like, I guess, stepping into that environment?
So you go to pre-deployment training. That's the major thing that you do before you leave.
And that's where I got injured.
A few months before you'll do that, you'll go to somewhere for a month or 2 weeks to a month. I don't remember exactly. It's been a long time.
It all depends on your mission.
So you go through that, and at some point you go on some sort of short leave before you actually deploy.
Yeah.
There's a lot that has to happen before you, from the unit's perspective, before you do head out. It's not just
hey, we need you in Afghanistan. We got you a ticket. Be here tomorrow.
You're moving thousands of people overseas.
It takes time.
There's a base you're leaving behind. So there's a lot of those type of tasks. And if your leadership is good, they'll let the soldiers kind of go a little early for just to spend time with their families before they leave.
Yeah.
So
and that's a key term, I think, can really make or break anyone's military experience, is good leadership.
Yeah.
So either be the good leader or be the good leader that you need. And the right leadership will recognize that, and it will definitely help your military career. It'll help the soldiers around you, because I don't care if you're a O4 or an E4, you have a leadership role, because no matter what, there's going to be someone underneath you who technically, you could be the same age, they could be a day younger than you. There's going to be someone who is below you in grade, And in the military, that means they have to listen to what you have to say, to a certain extent. But yeah, good leadership across the board, my biggest takeaway.
The best thing and the worst thing about the military and the Army is the people. Best thing and the worst thing.
Yeah, I agree. What rank were you when you got out? I said earlier I was in the E6. I was a staff sergeant. What about
E5.
You? E5,
Sergeant,
okay.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. So he would have to listen to me. This guy. Fritzy, he was actually my NCOIC in charge of the training that I got injured in. So Fritzy, first of all, I miss you, man. I haven't seen you in like forever. Also, you and I both know that was a bullshit training incident. And but you know what? Long story short, I love what I'm doing now. So it really set me on the path that I'm on today. So Fritzy, thank you. And come to DC. Come say hi, man. One of the biggest takeaways, biggest pieces of advice I give to anyone looking to go into the military is that besides the whole like call to serve, which for some people means more than others, for me, I had that a little bit. It was a family legacy aspect, but I really saw it as an opportunity to propel me into that next phase of life. So anyone who talks to a recruiter, anyone who's considering going into the military, make it work for you, would you say? I mean, because you can gain a lot out of it if you know what to look for, if you know how to go to certain trainings, go to certain schools.
Take advantage of they have a lot of programs while you're in the military. That's one of the regrets that I have, that I didn't take advantage of those things. Like fun things like free school. I mean, I used, towards the end of my time in the military, I used them to get a free personal training cert.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
They paid for it completely, and it was a $1,000 certification that the Army just took on for them.
They'll do one, I don't know if they still do, they'll do one complimentary selective surgery. I had friends who got lipo, nose jobs. True story. I had that done. I had the PRK laser eye corrective surgery. So that's a extremely expensive procedure, and they did it. Now I have like HD vision everywhere. I see everything in 4K. But so I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of different, unique perspective of the same but different MOSs.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So Dale actually has a YouTube channel. I'll link in. It's Whittle. But he is big. So hopefully we'll bridge the gap there.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I hope you enjoyed this unique look into what you can do in the military, how you can have the same job more or less and do different things with it, go different ways with it, and what you can do afterwards. So it set me on the path that I'm doing now as a trainer and a health coach and podcasting and videos and stuff. And Dell is still using his training now as a civilian. Yeah.
And like, I'm a different person when I came in, when I got out.
Sure.
Confidence wise, like I came out with a skill, everything. So I mean, I think anybody who ever asked me should I join, I always say do it, do it, it's worth it.
Yeah, so. And everyone who asked me would you go back and do it again, in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Especially knowing now, honestly, I liked boot camp. It was like weird. It was like a hate-love thing. Like it sucked. Don't get me wrong, but again, just embrace the suck. Be a good leader. Don't be a shitbag. So any other questions you have about joining the military, the MI field, linguist training, analyst training, in the military as a civilian now, please leave a comment, question down below, and go check out Dell's channel. He's moving big things. So we'll see you guys in the next video. Dell, thanks again, man.
Thanks.
What should we do?